Hi everyone, this is Nico. It's been a while since we've uploaded an episode, but our guest on this episode is Blair Kitchen. He taught us animation and storyboarding in first and second year respectively, but we recorded this episode in first year. Tragically, Blair passed away early this year. He was an incredibly kind friend and teacher, but he leaves behind his wife and 3 kids. For anyone who knew Blair and would like to help, there is a Gofundme set up for his family linked in the description below. That being said, please enjoy the episode. We are so happy to be able to share this time that we had with Blair.
Alright everybody, hello, welcome back to another episode of the
Animation Lunchbox
with
Tyler Nardone,
Mark Pedro,
Nico Poe.
Evan Perouse, and our special guest today is the magnificent Blair Kitchen.
Hello. Thanks for coming down.
Hey.
No problem. No problem.
Unfortunately, we're missing Danielle this podcast. She's a busy bee doing some animation projects.
I hear that's rough. Right, so I guess we'll start off so Blair, could you give us a rundown of a bit of your career, and we're starting from Sheridan, I guess, to where you are now.
Okay, well, I went to Sheridan here. I graduated in 1998, so that's back when it was a 3-year program, and everything was. I think we were one of the last years to actually shoot under the camera, everything on film. I think they got computers maybe 2 years after, something like that. So, or maybe right after they started to do some stuff. But yeah. So that was in '98. I've more or less stayed around Toronto working. So I've done a lot of animation. I animated for a lot of years for Chuck Image, doing commercials. I worked on a few features through Yowza Animation, Curious George, and I think my first feature was rough in between on Titan AE and then assisting on Osmosis Jones, and then as an animator, I think it might have been Curious George was the first one that I actually animated on. So
actually had scenes that they gave to you, and then you.
Yeah, I was an animator, so I animated probably 3 or 4 minutes of the film. So, and then once there wasn't as much 2D animation going on, so commercials started to get a little more sporadic and things. So I got into storyboarding. So there's a point where I think a lot of the 2D animators, they could either decide, do they want to animate and go into computer, or do they want to draw and go into storyboard?
Right.
So I went the storyboard route. So the last, I don't know how long it's been. My sense of time's all over the place. The last 10 years, 7 to 10 years, I've been primarily storyboarding.
That's awesome. That was mostly done through House of Cool, right?
Well, the last few summers I've been working there between teaching, but I've done a lot of stuff for them, and for just a lot of TV stuff too. Right, I started out doing TV stuff, and then got more into the feature stuff with House of Cool after. Maybe the last 4 years or so.
Was Book of Life the only feature you storyboarded, or is there some other ones?
Well, there's some I can't say because they're not out yet. No. Book of Life was the first. Years ago I did some like a Winnie the Pooh. I don't even know what happened to that. It wasn't the movie. It was before that. It was like a Halloween thing, but I did that a little bit.
Cool.
But I don't even know what they did with that. That was through Chuck Image.
Yeah.
Or I guess it was more with Charlie Bonifacio. It was a squeeze animation he had back then. But, Book of Life was the first feature that I worked on, and that was kind of for a little bit. I didn't do a ton on that, but enough to get my name in the credits. So that's okay.
That's nice.
And then after that, there was a Blue Sky project. It's not released yet, so.
Long production.
So what do you see in the difference in process between animating and storyboarding? Because it is both still character.
Well, all the character stuff I think is very similar. The acting, right? I mean, I approach it similar way as if I was going to do thumbnails or anything like that for animation, but you just don't take it past the thumbnail stage, really. I mean, you boards have changed a lot too over the years. I don't know if it's because all the animators started boarding, because now there's like a million poses and boards are almost like, some of them you could almost like animate on 8s.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the way a lot of boards are, which is fun. I think I enjoy putting in more poses because you get to feel like you're animating a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, all the acting stuff's the same. You just have to think about the camera shots. There's more stuff to think about, or I guess there's different stuff, right? You're thinking more about story and camera angles and compositions. And stuff. You think about all that when you board or when you animate, but not quite as much. Where you just don't have to. With the boarding, you don't have to think about all the timing and things like that. But acting's all there, which is the fun part. I like that best.
Yeah, the acting aspect of it all.
Yeah, character acting. Yeah, that's fun.
Do you think that's it's created a different industry standard now that like, see a lot of like 2D animators went into storyboarding because they didn't want to go into 3D animation, and now all the storyboards are almost like animations. Like that's what like industry professionals expect now is like almost 8.
Well, I don't know if it's what they expect or not. I think it's just what people do. I mean, I think that's more the artist, where you're working with people that do it, and then you look over, you go, "Oh man, that looks cool. I want to do that too." And my experience, they just say, keep it loose, keep it simple. But I think it's the artists that just kind of keep putting more. So we're kind of killing ourselves. But I know different studios have different methods, right? Like the way the Disney boards are approached is different than the way the DreamWorks boards are approached.
So in general, how long do you get to work on like a set of boards, Blair?
For what? For feature or TV?
I guess both, I mean, because it does vary, obviously.
TV would be a lot less time.
Yeah, TV's pretty standard, where you get you get 4 weeks to do 11 minutes kind of thing, right? So that's a kind of a standard.
So you do the whole 11 minutes, board it out?
Yeah, and sometimes they'll have, if like 11 minutes is a half of a show, right? So 22 minutes is kind of like a standard half-hour TV show. So a lot of shows are split in 2, so they do that way. Sometimes they'll give you 8 weeks to do 22 minutes, but it's all based around that, give or take a week or so. With the feature stuff, it's a lot more kind of organic the way it's done. Like, they'll give you a section and they'll say, "How long do you think you'll need?" and then you go, "I don't know." And then you look over it and you kind of get back to them. It's like, "Oh, I think we'll meet in 3 weeks or whatever, 2 weeks," and then so you rough it out, and then you have it's a lot more of a collaborative effort where if you're not in-house, which a lot of the stuff I've done isn't in-house, so you'll have a meeting over Skype or whatever in-house system they use, and kind of sometimes it goes quick and they go, okay, just tighten that up, and then other times they go, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And it goes off in this whole other direction.
Would you say it's more difficult, like working like through that, like through Skype instead of being like with meeting with someone in person?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think with the way technology is now, if they want to do some drawings, I mean, you can send them over in 5 minutes. It's pretty simple to do. It's better if you can see the person, which sometimes you can't. Sometimes just a call.
Right.
It's always nice if you're pitching. It's nice to see people. So if they're just quiet on the other line, you're like, I don't know, are they smiling or are they asleep or what? But if you can see that they're paying attention and responding to it, then it's a little easier. So
that makes sense.
But with the technology, it's pretty simple. Obviously, I think the best way to communicate it at all is just face to face.
Right.
But I don't think it hinders it too much.
That's good.
Yeah.
So not only are you a first-year animation teacher here, but you're also like a mentor for the 4th years.
Yeah.
Would you be able to like tell us about that? Because like, how does it work? Like, is it a specific class they go to and they bring you what they have and you help them out, or?
Yeah, we meet 2 hours a week so the groups are 10 students roughly. Excuse me. So it's about 10 students per mentor. You meet for 2 hours a week just to go over, as a group, and then you have office hours, which are available to meet one-on-one. So that's, I think each mentor has about 3 hours of office hours. You can meet with people, but you can also in those hours you can meet with anyone. It doesn't have to be from your group, right? Yeah, so you kind of open to whatever, but.
Do you get a lot of people that approach you from that you're not mentoring?
Yeah. It's pretty good. Like we encourage people to go to other people. So usually what happens is each mentor kind of has a specialty that like if I don't know computer stuff, but like as far as say After Effects, there's Trevor Davies. He's pretty good at After Effects. So I just go talk to Trevor. I don't know. I have a limited. I can I gotta fiddle around with it and that. But and then there's a few teachers that are good with the Maya stuff, so you say, okay, go talk to them about modeling and breakneck, because I don't know that stuff. So I tend to get a lot of people coming to me for animation, or early on it's all story stuff as well. So there's a few of us that do storyboards. So yeah, so you kind of it's up to the student to contact other people. But,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of like common problems that they run into, or is it pretty much unique to each person in their own film?
Every year is the same. You could probably break down the same ratio of problems per group, right? It's very similar. I mean, you want me to go over all the problems?
Yeah, like if
Here,
you're just saying like
touch a few.
because like sometimes you're saying that just some fourth years, maybe it's because there's so much they're doing, they kind of sometimes just forget the simple things that they learned way back in like first year. Right?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I mean, so first of all, with the stories. So the first half of the year, you focus on the stories and the animatics and all that. So, I mean, off the top of my head, some of the problems is that there's overambitious students. So like, I'm gonna make a 5-minute film, and it seems fine at first. You think, oh no, I can get it done, and it's very, very rare anyone pulls it off. Even if they do, they kind of regret it because at the end of the year they can't animate 5 minutes as well as they, and if they did a 1-minute film or whatever, they have 1 minute of really nice animation. Where if they do 5 minutes, they have a lot of scenes that are compromised, and so usually what happens around February or March, everyone starts to, I cut this, I cut my film down, I cut my, so you spend all this time working on making this, and then they start butchering it and cutting it because they can't finish. So that's recurring. Almost everybody, I'd suggest do a shorter film. Keep it nice and simple and concise and that. Time management, like you guys all know, is always a problem. So maybe they could have done a 5-minute film, but you got to really stick to schedule and that. There's a lot of, the normal story problems, making sure everything reads and makes sense and conveys an idea. You get a lot of people that don't want to make a story, they just want to make a demo reel, but when you're making a film, story's pretty important to have it really impactful, so just trying to convince people to make it about something or put some sort of a theme or anything like that into, because that's the hard stuff. That's writing is hard, so that's the hard stuff. Always encouraging students to get a lot of acting in their films. There's a lot of really nice drawings that do stuff, but not really acting. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference of, doing things and actually, how do they do it? How do they act? Right?
So like, why does it do that or something like that?
Yeah, I would just even like Goofy would do something differently than Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. Like just getting that character in there and the actual emotions and thinking and thought process. But again, all this stuff this is the hard stuff, so that's why it's it's not always in. And I think that's just a common thing with student films in general. But so those are some of the things that just year after year you kind of see
patterns.
Yeah. But every group seems to have a similar dynamic. I find where you get the really really strong students that okay, I'll just let you make your film, and then you get the ones that don't show up, and then you get the ones that overambitious, or it's kind of a similar dynamic. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Would the people who kind of have those overambitious 5-7 minute films, do you guys try and tell them you should cut it down, or do you just let them
No, you tell everyone at the beginning. Of the year. But with anything, there's you can say something for so many weeks, and then you just go, okay, well, you have to figure it out yourself.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to be careful because you don't want to, because every now and then someone pulls it off and it looks amazing, but you really have to kind of read the student as well, and kind of get a handle on if they're able to, or
Right.
So it's more caution rather than. That's the way I approach it. Anyways, it's more cautioning them rather than. Because every now and then, usually when you're onto something good, people will tell you you're crazy anyways. So,
That's true.
When you're sometimes when you gotta, am I crazy or am I actually,
Right.
on the right path? So usually when my wife tells me I'm nuts, I know I'm like, okay, I'm going the right way. Doing the right thing.
Is there anything about like animation that you find is like, I guess, the hardest to teach, or like kind of get into people's heads, like how something specific works? Because I know that like subtlety, like really subtle animations are kind of considered sometimes harder than the really big flashy stuff, right?
I don't know if it. I mean, subtleties are. It's all the same principles, right? So it's just a matter of toning it down. Maybe you have to know what you're doing more with subtleties because they are subtle. You have to be very specific in what you're doing, but it's no different than the big principles.
Right.
Like an eye blink has the same kind of spacing as like that snappy spacing. The charts, with a head shake or anything like that. It's the same type of like a favor out. You see a lot of like the repeating stuff, squash and stretch and all that stuff, but it's just subtler, right?
Yeah, something I
So-
recently heard on I think a podcast I was listening to was like they were talking about that, specifically that kind of difference between fast and slow scenes, and they were saying how slow scenes are the ones you really have to pay attention to, because that's like what people will notice. Like a slow scene, if something's wrong, people will know. But in a fast scene, it goes by really fast and you can get away with more.
Well, if something's moving fast, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get away with it. It'll always look better if it's done
Yeah.
nice and solid. There is a difference, but you can get away with stuff. Slow. I mean, it's on the screen longer. It's
Right.
if it's moving slower, you got to be really careful about your spacing, and everyone sees everything. Yeah. But going back to if there's hard things, like it was. Yes, if some stuff was harder to teach, or
like hard. Maybe like it's just hard for students to understand, maybe when they're so early into it, or something like that.
I find in general it's kind of, I mean, you can help students, but really like with art, with anything, really, it's just you have to do it a lot to understand it. Right? There's a lot of stuff that you can tell people, but to actually learn it, you have to.
Right.
You have
to do it.
Fail at it, and get better.
Well, you just it just takes time, right? Like if you ask, I have a brother that plays guitar and he's a really good guitarist, and I'm a really, I mean, I can play, but I'm a real, basic, right?
Right.
And I see it, I'm like, oh man, how do you, I find myself saying the same thing that people say with drawing. It's like, how do you do that? How, show me that, and it's like, and I know as I'm saying it, I'm like, well, I know how to learn it. I have to do it for 8 hours a day for how many years, and I know that. I just don't have the time, so I know I'll never get there. Same with drawing, right? You get in animating, you just have to do it, right? So that's why a lot of people ask, like, what should I work on over the summer? And I mean, some it's like just do it, do it a lot, right? Experiment, like that's how you learn most of this stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you see their work, you can say, oh, I'd work on this or that, but as a generalization, there's just a lot of. You guys have most of the information now. I mean, you do, right? It's just a matter of just practicing. Yeah.
So Blair, what would you say like as like some things that like separate like good animation from great animation?
Well, there's different. I mean, are we talking 2D animation?
Yes. That's what you
Okay.
know. So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, animation.
That's your animation. Is animation,
right?
But
Well, draftsmanship is a huge thing, right? Like you look at the great animators. I mean, they can draw the characters from every angle and rotate things. I mean, there's lots of. I mean, acting is probably the biggest thing I would say, right? With just it's the performance of the characters is super important. And it's just putting all that stuff together, right? Like all the principles, putting it together and pulling it off, right? But with animation, you have those principles, how to move things, but then you also have the drawing aspect, right? Which takes forever to master. And then you got you got the acting part, which I mean is a whole whole nother thing, right? That I mean, actors, they study their whole lives just with the acting. I mean, you gotta kind of put those three ingredients together and just make it all work, right? So the great animators, I think they're great at all those three aspects of it, right?
Right.
But then you get the styles of animation too, Rich, which are different, right? Some people can do the realistic stuff amazingly, but they can't do the cartoony stuff, or vice versa. So there's, I mean, I think the great animators, they can do everything. They can do it all, right?
Right. Like, I mean, just like when we saw Prologue. The last couple of classes ago. Like his like super uber realistic, like these are all completely human, but I've also seen very cartoony stuff that he's done before.
Oh yeah, like Richard Williams, he can do the whole gamut. You know, I don't know if there's anything he couldn't really do. I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything. That, like you said, he does from the realistic to the cartoony.
Right.
You know, most people. I mean, some people say, "Oh, I just like to do the cartoony stuff because it's easier," but then other people they can't.
Yeah.
It's the same with you. Like, see a lot of people that their life drawings are beautiful, but then they try and draw a cartoon and it falls apart, right? So it's one of those things. It's hard to.
Right.
Some people can do it. Some people can't. It's
So when you made the decision, you said most people, 2D animators, they had to make the decision to go either into storyboards and keep drawing, or go into like CGI and computer stuff. Like, was there anything that like made you want to stay in 2D specifically, or?
Yeah, because I didn't feel I was a good drawer, so I wanted to get better. I always thought I came into animation because I like to draw, right? So it was one of the careers that you could draw and still make money at, or make a living at least, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I got into animation, because I like drawing. So, and it's one of those things, I'm pretty stubborn, so if I didn't want to quit before I figured it out. So I still haven't, but I like drawing, so that was the main thing. I'd done stop motion animation before. I haven't done a lot of computer, but I think the stop motion was similar. You're still using your hands a bit more, but I did stop motion for a year, and I really missed drawing. So I just knew, it was really good for like learning how to animate. It was great because you're
in that 3D space.
Yeah, and you're just focusing on animation. I found once I went back to 2D animation, my animation was a lot better. But because you're thinking three-dimensionally a lot, and that really helped, thinking about not just a flat plane, but thinking in 3 dimensions.
Would you say stop motion was harder than 2D to animate, or no?
No, it's different. It's if anything, it's easier because you don't have to think about the drawing. I mean, for me, the drawing was always always the like your struggle. I found I could kind of instinctually animate a bit, like, I kind of knew what I was doing with the animation, but it's always struggling with the drawing part of it, right? Okay. Which I think a lot of people do, right? I think it's you can't really expect to. Okay. Most people turn that corner when they're 50 or 60, but yeah. So it was easier in that sense, but then you got to think differently as well, because you can only animate straight ahead, so you got to. Right. When I first did stop motion, I wanted to just get into the next pose, right? So you got to train your brain to think, okay, I got to move it a little bit at a time, so you got to slow out.
That's interesting.
But I mean, like anything, it took takes a couple weeks to kind of get your brain wrapped around it, and then it was fine. And the other thing too with the hand drawn stuff is you can pretty much just, if you can draw it, you can do it. Whereas with the 3D stuff, you gotta. Sometimes just even making someone run, you gotta have all these like things propping the characters up. So if they're not touching the ground, you gotta use rigs, and there's a lot of extra stuff you gotta think about as well when you're animating. So there's some different things to think about as well. You gotta think about the compositor stuff to erase all those those rigs and stuff. But yeah, it was fun though. It's a good experience to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you ever, returning to stop motion just for your experimenting?
Yeah, I went back. There was a few years where I went back and I did it kind of in the evenings. Like that was actually really nice because I was still working, but they needed help, so I'd go back maybe after work at 6 o'clock till I don't know, 1 a.m. or something after everyone had left. And that was kind of nice, actually. Just
Oh,
at the studio
by
by yourself.
yourself.
Yeah.
And just animating, just what I'd get to wherever I could get to, and then.
Being your
So
own
you have
thing.
done some stop motion stuff for TV, haven't you, Blair?
Yeah. So it was through Cup of Coffee
Ah.
animation. So, I started on JoJo's Circus.
Yes.
Which was it was it was actually pretty fun. And then they had a couple other shows, Life's a Zoo, and I forget the name of the other one. It's like a family on a road trip. I was just coming in at nights, and they set it up, and I do it. Oh, that's bad. I forget the name. I don't think I ever saw the show, but I got some files somewhere.
See, they would set it up, then you just come in at night and animate away and leave in the morning.
Yeah, I'd usually come in when people were leaving, and I'd see the director for
You like magic
a little bit.
elves.
Yeah.
People, everyone's gone.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. It was just like some quiet.
Yeah.
So, and then I did some just a little bit, I guess, on what's it called? The Miser's Christmas special. Do you remember the Rudolph
really?
or the Heat Miser and Cold Miser?
Really?
Yeah, there was.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
it was a new one though.
Really?
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Dave Thomas was directing.
I wonder.
Yeah, these were just like just a little bit when I'd come in, and
Oh, yeah.
just whenever
Cool.
I could, just animate a few scenes.
But it was like a new one, like in addition to what they had. or
When
something?
was that? That was like that was maybe 10 years ago or something. Maybe 10 years
I think
ago.
it was the one I'm thinking of. I think it was made in the 90s, I think.
No, it was
The Miser
before.
one?
It was after that. It was like 2000.
Oh, maybe it's a different one I'm thinking of then. I'm not sure.
When would it be?
We'll have to try
Is
to-
it 6?
Maybe 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
2000, maybe before that. My sense of time's over. Ever since I had kids, sense of time's all over the place. I have no idea.
So Blair, what would your advice be for like time management? 'Cause you do a lot. You do storyboarding and animation. You teach us. You teach 4th years. You
Yeah.
spend time with your wife and your kids.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You're
Drive
doing
them
your
to
comic
hockey.
on the side. Oh yeah, that's right. So I don't know. What was your advice to people who are maybe struggling managing time?
Time management.
Well, it helps if you need the money. That's
a
spend your
good
money. Always keep in debt so you can keep working.
Yeah.
Well, you have to know how long it takes you to do things. I remember, so I was working with at Chuck Gamage. This is when I was like pretty close to out of school, and he could animate a commercial in a week, and like a 30-second commercial. And we'd always get stuck because I was assisting, so we'd always get stuck having to clean up a commercial, which was a lot. But I remember him saying, "It's like I know I can do it in a week, so I procrastinate and put it off for
That's
a week."
so
And I remember thinking, well, that's kind of weird. That doesn't make any sense. But then I do the same thing now. But knowing how long it takes you to do things is the biggest thing. Because I always like to say if I'm doing a storyboard, because I do a lot of boards like in the evenings and stuff, and I know how long, like I know per day, like I can do, if I really, really have to, comfortably I can do a page of script a day. That's easy. And then for this is more for TV stuff, but and then I know if I have to work really hard, I can do 2 pages. And I know if I'm like really, really, crazy, I can do 3. If I, but then you got to know, but I can't do that for a whole board, or else I'll just burn myself out. You know that I can get maybe 3 days of doing 3 pages a day. You can kind of do that before you start burning out. So knowing how long it takes you to do things, and then knowing how long you can sustain that, because you can't just sustain that forever, right? Because I'd be rich if I could. You can't do it. You burn out, right? So, you gotta and planning, planning for that last little push, but making sure you set yourself up in that, making sure like you keep on pace to set yourself up for a little push at the end is what you want to do. And it's just like don't play video games, or, don't get into Netflix TV series or anything like that. I mean, there's lots of time wasters that you can do, right? So it's just taking advantage of the time that you have is the biggest thing, and just kind of try and be productive every day on something. But schedules, all that stuff, you gotta give yourself. Usually, what I do too, if I'm in a crunch, you have a morning kind of goal. Like I break everything up into days. I have to get so much done a day, but then you have to say, okay, I have the morning, afternoon, and evening. So I gotta, you can break your day into 3 parts. Saying I gotta get this much done by noon, and then I'll have my lunch. Then so give yourself goals. Something I learned from I don't know if you know Dave Sim. He's a comic book artist. Created Cerebus. Anyways, it's the longest running independent comic book ever.
Wow.
300 issues. He's from Kitchener. But he has a guide to self-publishing book that he does, and in there that what really stuck with me is like keep a clock by your desk and always be conscious about how long it takes you to draw something, like do a drawing, how long it is. So if you're always aware of the time and say, okay, that drawing took me 10 minutes, or and you can kind of train yourself by do a drawing and then before you look at the clock kind of guess what time it is,
Right.
and see how far. Sometimes you're way off because you get sucked into the drawing, but then usually it's a time waste, right? Because then all of a sudden half an hour goes by and you didn't even realize it. So you get just always being aware of what time it is and how long it's been taking you to do things is really helpful too.
Because definitely, like I found with animating or anything like that, it just sucks time away. Just like before you know it, it's just like.
It's funny with storyboards I can't do it. With animation I can sit down and draw in the morning and not look up until evening. Like I just like hours just go by and I don't even know it.
Yeah.
But it's so being conscious of what time it is. And there's a time and a place. Sometimes when I first start a scene, I love that I'll just say, okay, today I'm just roughing the scene out, and you can get just sucked in and rough it out. But then when you get into now I got to tie down and I got to kind of finish the scene, you got to really be aware of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So in first year at least, you're like a very big advocate for trying all the animation assignments like on paper. Like even when you say, you can do this one digitally, but you prefer on paper. And you were saying that like there's just like a feeling you get with like actually flipping as opposed to like pressing buttons and sliding and stuff. Like, can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest thing with the paper is you can't cheat on paper. So anytime students go to Toon Boom, you say don't copy and paste, don't use the stretch tool and all this. Yeah. And every time it comes back, like you can tell like every time because it's just so tempting to just go Control C, Control V. It's so easy rather than drawing that thing. But it looks better when you draw it. I mean, because then you can get slight angles of the head tilts and hands and things. Right? Things should not just be moving stiff like copy and paste, same angle, right? Animation's all about change of shape and change of angles and stuff. So copy and paste is not good. So there's that, and then there's a lot of times it's just trying to figure out the pen tools and stuff. Like it's like animating with a marker a lot of times, unless you know all the custom brushes and you got a setting and you've really kind of taken your time to understand the pencil. So I've seen some beautiful stuff on Toon Boom or Flash, but it's that especially when you're learning to draw three-dimensionally. I just find anytime you go to Toon Boom or computer, everything gets flattened out, and I think that has a lot to do with just the drawing tools because you're just it's so much easier to think about just the final outline, right? And some people can do it because they've trained themselves and they can see in 3 dimensions and they can kind of draw that way. But I find a lot of people starting out, they get stuck to like thinking flat 2D. Yeah. So that's a big thing too. Which I think the paper you can kind of feel out the lines and draw lightly and kind of carve out your drawing a little bit more to get that 3-dimensional look. So that's another thing too. And then there's the slider tool. They're just a scrubbing through, right? Yeah. To get a sense of timing of your scene, I think it's really important to play it like 24 frames a second, play it through.
Just go back to the beginning and play.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't just scrub through everything, and I get that when they show me their work, I'll sit down and they'll just show it to me scrubbing through. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. Press play. Just let's see what you actually have, right? Because if you don't see it if you can't see it when you just press play, then no one's going to see it. That's what you do, right? When you scrub through. So the audience doesn't scrub through. So I think that's another thing. It kind of forces. I mean, now that's a little different now because you can test it and then just sit there and scrub through as well. So, but just getting that, it's a good idea to be able to just press play and just look at it and and then after you say, okay, I see like 5 things I want to fix, then scrub through and then say, okay, what is it exactly that I have to?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is this not working? But it's a good idea to just play it and look at it, and that's
Right.
you know, back in the, like say, we had line pretty much when I first came here. I mean, they had a QAR, which was a digital thing, but it wasn't too. It was very pixely, and you couldn't. I can't remember if you could scrub through. I think you might be able to, but that was. We started out with just line testers, which you just recorded onto a VHS tape, right, with the camera, right. So then you could, but you just had to play it and look at it, and that's what you got to see. And I think, and even before that, professionally they shoot it on film and get it back, and you just play it on film, right? Wow. So you got to see exactly what the audience was going to see, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that was a big motivator for people to get something right too. Because I heard when they did it with like films like that, like you would animate a scene and then you send it away and you wouldn't get it back for like 3 days.
Yeah, or a couple of days or the next day or whatever. But well, just for time, you had to really know what you're doing. You had to think a lot before the planning stages.
And now it's so easy, just like go shoot it on a little camcorder thing or
like I'm guilty of that too when I first started, because it was simple to just shoot something really quick and look at it without really thinking. And I wouldn't do thumbnails, and I just scribble something out, and then it's like you look at it and go, it kind of works. Maybe I'll try changing this. But you're more taking something that doesn't work and trying to make it work, rather than just sitting down and planning and starting with something that you're pretty sure is going to work.
Right. Yeah.
So even now, every time I do thumbnails, it looks better. It just always looks better. So
cool.
That planning.
Yeah.
Dope sheets. Use dope sheets and plan it out. Yeah.
Oh man, like I definitely know what you're talking about, like with the flatness stuff, because I don't know if it's just for like lack of experience so far in Toon Boom, but doing projects in animation class where it's all on paper, I'm much more willing to just like sit with the drawings and like get nice like line quality or something, work with a drawing, and then on our digital tools class when we're animating on Toon Boom, and I was doing like the final short film, and I had my roughs and it was time to clean it up, and it was like vector lines, and it's just like I do it like I don't like it, but it's just so wonky, like I just kind of want to just get to the next one instead of actually but like on paper it's just so much I don't know, there's like a different feeling of just getting it, like,
and this might be me too. I mean, I love on paper that I can work on a drawing, and then I just, if it's not working or it's getting too rough, I just put another piece of paper down and I draw, and I chuck the other drawing away or put it on a shelf somewhere in case I need it later. But where with the computer, it's hard to commit to like drawing on another level, and then what do you do? Do you combine the levels, or how do you, like Toon Boom 2, I find, I don't know, maybe there is a way to switch levels with drawings and stuff, but I just find it's so, it takes you out of the process a little bit, I think, when you're drawing. I just find the paper, it's just you get a really nice flow. But that could be me too, because I've always drawn on paper, but I think when you're learning, there's some really good methods to learn with the paper, like working with keys and breakdowns and all that, not just drawing straight ahead. I find that with the Toon Boom stuff too, when people clean up, that they with Toon Boom there is the tools so that you can shift and trace and take drawings onto the pegs into the drawing mode, but it's just kind of again, it kind of takes you out of the flow of the process, for me anyways, unless you kind of really get used to it. I find it takes a little long, it takes a little time to get used to doing that, so a lot of people don't bother, so they just start cleaning up like one drawing and then the next drawing, and the next, rather than using keys. So I think there's just a lot of the process is just a bit more intuitive with paper a little bit. So again, that could be what you're grown up drawing with, right? Maybe 10 years from now, everyone's grown up drawing on Cintiq. So I don't know, like you guys, did you guys draw on, like, what did you guys draw on up till you got here?
I didn't touch digital until I got here this year.
Yeah, I didn't even know until like I took a victory lap in high school, and that's when I discovered that our school had like tablets.
Oh
'Cause
yeah,
I was
yeah.
in art classes, and and
Yeah.
then someone's like, "Look, it's a tablet," and I was like, "Look, I didn't even know what it was."
Yeah.
Like,
I use them
Yeah.
sometimes or before I started here, but I would always get frustrated. Like, I'm like, there's a disconnect. It's not the one-to-one like if I was
And
drawing on
that's- yeah.
paper. So I would always
I feel the
I
same.
get frustrated and be like, oh, I'll just do it on paper.
Yeah, so I think most people are in the same boat, even with
Yeah.
just learning how to draw on paper.
Mhm.
There is something like the disconnect is a
Yeah.
good way to put it. So, yeah, you can't argue. I think with the computer stuff, with some stuff like storyboards, I love
Yeah.
working with the computer. Some of the organizational stuff kind of frustrates me because you can't. You can't. It's harder to get drawings out of the wastebasket if you need them again.
yeah.
Darn! I
It's gone
like what I
already.
had before, and
Yeah.
then it's gone. But
You have your own custom organization where you just put it all around you.
yeah, I sometimes try and do that with the computer stuff. With if you're drawing with Photoshop and stuff, it's a little easier. I find with Storyboard Pro and that it's a little harder
Yeah.
because it's not like you can just have a trash level or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's a little harder too. But I don't even know what I was talking about now. What was I talking about? I got sidetracked.
The tablets and how it's a bit harder to work with them digitally than it is. So I guess working with Toon Boom, would it be better just to make sure constantly remind yourself to use those 2D techniques and principles to definitely don't get lazy with like you said copy paste.
Yeah, and that's why in first year especially I like getting everyone to do. I'm still glad. I'm glad we use paper, and I think even second year would be good to keep using it. But
I'm really glad.
They don't use it in second year?
No, they a lot of. I mean, maybe it's okay, but I think at least the first year you really gotta get used to that. I know what I was gonna say. The Toon Boom stuff is great for anything graphic or anything. That's why it works so well for TV stuff and that because it is a little more graphic. So once you get into more the Disney kind of three-dimensional stuff, it gets a little harder. But with the hand-drawn stuff or with the 2D stuff for TV, it's great. Anything stylistic like that.
Yeah.
So.
That's made for 2D.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of as a way to almost maybe wrap up, Blair, what do you feel is the future of 2D animation stuff like Sergio Pablos' studio? Do you feel could be maybe a resurgence or?
Oh yeah, I think there's definitely demand for it. I think people are getting. I mean, I know just from social media, anytime there's something nice 2D, I mean gets passed around and people get excited. So
huge
I think you just need a good film.
Yeah, I've heard of some podcasts Brad Bird believes that all it's going to take is one person to do something amazing.
That's
everyone's going to fall in love with 2D again.
Yeah, and that happened. I mean, that's the way it works with stop motion. I think it's just. As far as studios are concerned, I think if there's some money to be made, it's gonna come back, right? I just think I don't think because Disney had a couple tried to bring it back, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
But I don't think they went about it the right way. I think it's gonna take something different. Not the same old. Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea if that's gonna do it or not. I don't know. I mean, it looks cool. It's exciting. I have no idea about the story. It's gonna take a good story though. It's not gonna be the drawing. I think it's gonna take a really good film, right? To bring it back. So, and there's lots of nice, European stuff still being done right now.
The Show Maestro, that's always beautiful.
I mean, the Klaus is. I guess it's European as well, but there's been some nice stuff being done, but I don't think it really. I don't know. It's got to be something for North America. It's got to be something that's North American. Something.
Something
that speaks to us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
there's a lot of money and revenue towards it.
That's also true.
Yeah. So, maybe you guys could do it. Maybe I can do it. For me, I'm fine. I'm working on some of my own stuff too, so I'm fine with it. And if no one, I'm not one to complain about it. I think just you just got to start making 2D stuff.
People seem to love it. It seems like a majority of student films in fourth year are 2D, aren't they? And
there still is a majority. Yeah. I mean, the 2D stuff with TV, television. I mean, it's super popular. There's tons of stuff going on now, right? So, as far as the television model, there's tons of work out there, right? Tons of stuff being done, and has a pretty big following. So I don't know. I don't know what it takes to translate that into the feature stuff, but I guess anything though too is that the 3D stuff appeals to non-artist
Yeah.
Right.
folks, right? Whereas the hand-drawn stuff, I guess it's a bit more, you're going on a kid market a bit
That's
more.
true.
Whether that's
I'd
right
say
or
that.
wrong, but I'm thinking of my friends that don't know anything about, animation or art or,
It makes it a little bit more
electricians or
real for
Yeah,
them.
I think it's that a lot of people who don't appreciate animation or know it as much. They see the 3D and they think it looks really nice, but then the 2D maybe it's not as impressive because it's a drawing to them, and they don't see it as like a.
Yeah, but then I got other people, they don't even know the difference between 2D
Yeah.
and 3D.
Yeah,
So,
I
you have to
remember,
not-
like, when I was getting into this program, I was talking to my mom about it, like, the difference and stuff. She's like, I don't see it. And I was like, well, like, look at Frozen. She's like, okay. And I was like, look at Aladdin. She's like,
Yeah.
all right. I'm like, what's the difference? She's like, I don't know. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
how do you not-
cartoons,
how do you
I
not
don't
see
know.
it? Yeah.
So who knows,
Wow.
right? But as far as, I mean, 2D's done fine, being geared towards younger adults or that niche kind of thing. So I think it'll come back. I think it's a matter of time. Or even if it just does live on with some smaller budget films and things like that. I mean, it's always going to be there. It's not going to go away.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it just takes a hit.
Yeah.
And who knows if you can figure out what the hit is, and I'll give you some money and we'll get some money and we'll make it.
Yeah.
So, but,
Oh, man. So should we wrap it up, I think?
Yeah.
Do you want any plugs for the episode, like your blog or your web series or anything like that?
well, sure. Well, I don't have a web series for
Your website.
No, I do a comic book called The Possum. Website's possumpress.com. So I don't know what
Go
state
see
the
it.
website is. I mean, I think it. Yeah, I think it's up and
Last
running.
time I was there, it worked
Yeah,
pretty well. Last time
Was
I
it
was
okay?
on,
Every
yeah.
now and then I go on and I'm like, nothing's working. So,
How's that going though? That your comics
slowly,
going?
slowly, yeah. Everything, you said about being busy. It's
Yeah, that's true.
But you gotta keep doing your own stuff as well.
Mhm.
So I'm doing the comic. Issue 6 is half done. It's been half done for a few years now. But I told someone I wanted to get it done for the summer, and Dave Simmons, I'm friends with him, so I had mentioned in passing that I wanted to get the comic done for the end of the summer, and his eyes lit up. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna hold it to you." And for him, if you know him, back in I don't know when it was, but it was in the maybe late 70s. I mean, he started his comic in 76. I know 70. I don't know. I forget the date. I don't want to say it on record because but he said when he was early on, early on into the comic, he said, "I'm going to do 300 issues, and so it's going to end on March 2004." And he did it. The whole, he did. He said it when he was young, and then he finished it on March 2004.
Wow.
So when I said that to him, that I wanted to get my issue 6 done for the end of the summer, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to hold you to it." I'm like, "Oh, crap." Why didn't you do that?" I was out of all the people to say that to me, that was the stupidest thing I could have. So I don't know. I might let him down. I might not be able to do it, but I'll have to make a push anyways. But then I'm also working on a film, like a little short film for that character as well. So,
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
so it's storyboarded now. I got to start animating. I think I have 1 or 2 scenes kind of roughed out. But,
Yeah, I think you showed us one of them at one point in class.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's when I roughed it out. I roughed it out this year. So that's gonna be a long undertaking too. So I don't know. I always have about 6 things on the go, and just pick away at everything, and then eventually you get frustrated and say, "Okay, I gotta finish one of these projects." So,
Right.
but anyways, my website's www.
We'll link it in the
Possum.
description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Look for it below.
Awesome.
Yeah. Right
We
on.
also get all our guests to make a random shape,
Oh, yeah,
and we
okay.
put that shape on the video, and then people can make characters from it.
Okay.
So we're gonna get you to draw one of those
Okay.
too.
I've only seen Jason's shape. And that's stuck in my head, so I'll try and do something different. I can't do the exact same one. Just
So you started listening to some of them?
Yeah, well, I just listened to the ones.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'll go back and I want to. Once I'm
Good
sitting
stuff.
down for
We
a
have a
long
couple.
period of time.
We have a couple more interviews in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Awesome.
good that you guys are doing this.
Well, Blair, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks
It was
for having
awesome,
me.
a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Right on.
Thanks for listening to the
Animation Lunchbox.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. Again, the link to the GoFundMe for Blair's family is in the description below. Anything to help would be amazing. Blair was kind enough to sit down with us for an interview a couple of times, so look out for part 2 coming soon. And thanks again.